Hey, I want to tell you about Moto Brand. Moto Brand was founded during the 2020 COVID-19 pandemic when the sport that we live for was taken from so many of us, whether it's cycling or moto. Waking up on a Saturday morning knowing that your local track was closed, there would be no Supercross, and for many of us that we couldn't even hit our favorite local riding spot or trail with our crew. We are forced to be reminded of how much the sport of moto and cycling truly means to us. Moto Brand represents a collection of individuals that not only ride, but live to ride. It's what we think of at all times of the day, and sometimes at a detriment to your relationship with your significant other. It's for those that look at their motorcycle or their bicycle as part of their identity. Maybe it's the way that you bond with your son or your daughter or your spouse. Perhaps it's your way to blow off stress of your day job, or even, hey, it is what it is, maybe even it's your marriage. This sport is more than just a sport. For many of us, it's a way of life. It's what keeps us ticking. It's what keeps us living. Moto Brand was created for a purpose, to be more than just a shirt that you can throw on in the morning, but these designs represent who you are and what you stand for. So I encourage you to head over to themotobrand.com, check out our collection. We have a pedal collection and we have a throttle collection, and there are more designs to come that stand for something. So head over to themotobrand.com and we'll see you there. Hey, right now Racer X is offering a pretty exciting promotion free to sign up for the magazine. If you go to racerxonline.com/moto marketing, anybody that subscribes right now is automatically entered into a pool for an opportunity to win your very own Specialized Turbo Levo. Now, anybody that follows me knows I'm an e-bike enthusiast, along with our friends at the Pulp MX Show and Steve Mathis. We love e-bikes. We have an e-bike team at Impakt, and we're all about it. And you can win your very own Turbo Levo, which is specialized, top-of-the-line, pedal assist mountain bike. It's what I personally ride, and I can tell you, man, they are a blast. So go over to racerxonline.com/moto marketing for your opportunity to get your very own e-bike.
Welcome to the Moto Marketing Podcast, presented by Racer X, the podcast for moto industry professionals, entrepreneurs, and riders. If you want to grow your brand and business in today's digital-first world, you have to know how to turn a stranger into a fan, turn a like into a customer. You have to know how to turn attention into dollars. This podcast is dedicated to keeping you in the know on real marketing tactics that work in the moto world so that you grow your business and help grow the sport. Get ready to learn from the very same marketing experts trusted by Racer X, Lucas Oil Pro Motocross, GNCC, and NBC Sports. They'll help you navigate the world of digital marketing for your moto brand. This is the Moto Marketing Podcast. Presented by Racer X.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast. We've got an exciting guest for you today. We've got Nate Adams, freestyle motocross icon, one of the winningest X Games athletes of all time. Somebody that I used to watch and just idolize over what he was able to do on a motorcycle as a kid. And have the pleasure to have him on the show today to talk about transitioning from just an athlete to athlete and entrepreneur, and his involvement with Deft Family and his glove company, and what they're doing, and really what the future holds. So, Nate, man, it's a pleasure to have you on the show today. I appreciate you joining us, and welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me, man. Pleasure to be here.
So let's, for those that might be living under a rock, or more realistically, those that might be somewhat new to the sport of moto, that are also intrigued with business, let's take a step back quickly and talk about kind of the pinnacle of the X Games, which was when you and Deegan and Pastrana and all those guys were throwing down, and there wasn't the internet. It was the thing that everybody looked forward to once a year to watch Summer X Games.
Yeah.
That was the highlight of my summer. I remember getting together with my buddies, and we'd watch it, and then we'd go out and ride the next day, and we'd be so stoked just because some of the stuff that you guys would have done the night before. Talk to us a little bit about your career and kind of when Deft Family kind of started to work its way into you just becoming not just an athlete, but an entrepreneur as well.
Okay. I just wanted to touch, that's a great point. Before the internet was just, there was the internet back then, but it wasn't just all encompassing as it is now with the social media and all that. And that was it. Like, you couldn't really see it anywhere else than,
Yeah.
in America, the biggest event was X Games every year. And there was Do Action Sports tour stops and stuff. But I remember that it was a different time and a different vibe. And there was so much hype around that event. And how that kind of ties into your question here is that, I feel obviously blessed, first and foremost, to turn my boyhood dream of just loving dirt bikes and wanting to be a dirt bike rider into reality. But I feel that I got into freestyle as it was still growing as a sport. And I feel like my kind of career followed that to the peak of freestyle. I mean, those, some of the X Fighters events we rode, they couldn't even tell you how many people were there, 100,000 plus at the event. It was, anyway, just a blessing to be able to ride X Games and X Fighters during what I feel like was kind of the prime of freestyle competition.
Yeah.
And just what a blessing. I mean, as you know, you and your buddies were there. The vibe for those events, especially in the Coliseum and Home Depot Center, was unreal. But that during that time, I was able to realize that, I had some big injuries early on in my career, and kind of throughout my career. I was kind of known for getting hurt and coming back. But I decided, well, I'm going to start a company that will keep me in this industry and around the sport that I love completely when I'm done competing. And that was Deft Family. I just saw a lack of attention to the gloves back then and still today. And I just think it's a part that for some reason is overlooked by gear companies. And I thought, hey, I can do this. I know what, talking to my buddies and I knew what I wanted in a glove was what a lot of my other buddies who were pro riders as well wanted out of a glove, and we couldn't find. So I started Deft Family, and here we are, nearly 11 years later.
Have you always been an artistic guy? Because I feel like a lot of what has to be prominent with a glove is the design has to stand out, and that's the thing that I think I've noticed the most from day one of Deft Family is it's not just a standard solid collar glove. Like there's a lot of artistic thought that goes into that. Does that come naturally to you, or do you just kind of have a vision that then you toss to somebody else that they help you bring that to reality?
See, I've never actually done, the actual designing of the gloves. I've always hired a designer or had a designer in-house. And, but I know what I want in the look and the feel and the function of the glove. And, I kind of have been able to, it's been about 3 different designers now over the past decade, but, things come and go and people move on to different things, but I know what I want in my glove and a designer that can get me that and kind of, we kind of think similarly, just I can tell them something and they're already tell them something of what I want with the look I want or the colors and they kind of get it and they can come back to me with samples and design samples and keep the vibe of the company, the look, the style, the same. You might not have been able to realize I've had 3 different designers, but I just want that to stay consistent with that. Not just the design, but also fit and function is extremely important as well. So. To answer your question, yeah, I mean, I've always kind of been into drawing, sketching, things like that, but never got into digital design. Just had a bit of an eye for it and enough to be able to hire someone to say, this is what I want. And when it's exactly what I want, then we'll, put it to market.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. I want to go back a little bit. I kind of jumped forward. Talk to me about you're at the pinnacle of your sport. How does this come from an idea to something that comes to fruition as far as, I mean, gear deals are like a major part of the top freestyle guys' portfolio of how they live. So how does this idea come up, and then how do you actually get it to where it can work to where, Thor and all these other brands pretty much have you head to toe? How did you make your idea and your product fit into that mold?
Great question, Luke. And another blessing, I have to say, just kind of fell into my lap and I took advantage of it. But do you remember the days, probably when you were a kid and watching me at X Games when I was sponsored by Target stores,
Yep.
Had the Target emblems on my helmet and
Yep.
on the palm of my gloves? Well, they basically bought the gloves. I was riding for Thor at the time, and Target went to a glove manufacturer and said, hey, we want to make manufacture motocross gloves. And they kind of just had like a template motocross glove. They put their targets on it, their emblems on it. I started running them. Well, when my idea for Deft Family came about, I reached out to my manager, Jimmy Button at Wasserman Media Group, and he says, like, yeah, basically, I don't see a problem with it. Your gloves are open as long as you keep the Target logos on the glove where they're, per your contract. I don't think there'd be a problem. So I reached out to Target, and Devin O'Brien, super cool guy. I haven't spoken with him in years, but anyway, we actually became friends through this time working together. But he was like, oh, one less thing for me to do, make motocross gloves, take it. So I just instantly had this, I had the contract with Thor for no gloves included, and I had Target just saying, yeah, totally, take it off our plate. So
that's cool.
It was pretty easy because, any other way than that, how are you going to convince Alpine Stars, my gear sponsor now and for the past few years, is how am I going to convince them to take gloves out of my contract? It's kind of a dead end road. So again, that was just the whole Target and no gloves in my contract for my gear deal at that time just kind of fell into my lap, and I ran with it.
So once you kind of took that concept or that idea to a real living concept and used yourself as the kind of the guinea pig for it, what was the next step after that? You obviously freestyle guys ride with other freestyle guys. So was it, the bros started to see the designs and what you had on your hands and you started to flow them some pair, and how did it kind of go to the next level? Or did people just see it on you and there it was and it started to sell?
Well, kind of that super generic template motocross glove that Target had. It was okay. It got the job done, but it wasn't what I wanted by any means. It was basically on par with anything else that was out there. And so it was about, I don't know, maybe upwards of a year of samples back and forth with the vendor overseas. And then once we got that sample right, we just kind of had, not much design on our gloves. And I was just going out and riding in them and practicing in them. And the homies started seeing them. And when we started getting our samples with designs and I put in, a chunk of change to get a first production, it was like Twitch and Taka and Robbie Madison and all my buddies, I felt like we at Deft Family had done our job because we made a glove that once people didn't even ride in it, they just put it on their hand. They're like, yeah, I want to ride in this glove. And amazingly, some companies that my buddies were sponsored by did let them wear Deft gloves for a little while until the company kind of started to pick up some steam, pick up speed. And then it was like everything just got clipped at once. And I had to start, you kind of realize everyone's your friend until you're kind of a threat.
I see.
And that's true in competition in motocross, freestyle, and in business too. So companies started pulling the reins in on that. And then I kind of started having to, play that whole game, silly season, get in contact with the guys and pay them what I could pay them out of the company's earnings and see what riders I could get on my team, So it happened fast. And it was the glove we were offering the guys couldn't get anywhere else. So it was immediately, as soon as I had even samples in my hand, riders were being drawn to it. And of course, and what I said earlier about that's why I wanted to start the company back then is because I had access to the Takas, to the Twitches, to the everyone, and I was always riding with them, and it was like we were all competing, and we were the top guys in our individual sports. So I saw it as a great opportunity, and it worked out.
That's interesting because it's that had to have been a learning experience to where you're just an athlete, that you're focused on just being an athlete, and you've got this idea and your friends think it's cool and they start to rock it. Now all of a sudden you've got to go to the negotiating table. What was that learning curve like? Or was it pretty natural just because you've gone through it yourself with the brands that sponsor you? What did that look like for you as you kind of were getting your feet wet with it for the first time?
Yeah, it was a little learning experience. Even today, I'm still learning about business. I consider myself a dirt bike rider first, and I wouldn't even call myself a businessman, but I'm a brand owner, but it was, I guess it kind of caught me off guard just because everything at the beginning, once guys started putting hands in the gloves, it was like they wanted to ride in them. They called their sponsor, hey, if Nate runs a Deft Family Academy, it's going to be head to toe, the gear company just minus gloves. So you're kind of, six or a half dozen, whatever you want to say it. So that worked, almost pitching to other gear companies that, hey, you're going to get more exposure through Deft Family. We're going to be running ads with your athlete, your gears all over them. that worked for a couple years, but then it was just, I realized that business is a fight. It's just like a boxing match or a dirt bike race. And, there's rules to abide by, but people aren't handing anything over. It's a fight. And so I kind of had to, just learn that. And there's no hard feelings. It's just business. It really is just business. There's no hard feelings. And if Twitch had to stop riding. His gear sponsor at the time said, hey, no more Deft Family gloves. And me and Twitch are still great friends. It didn't affect our friendship at all, but it literally is just business.
So I want to key in on Twitch a little bit, because I think what he's doing now is super intriguing to me, to where he's just like yourself. He's one of the OG guys of the sport, and he, as well as Deegan, have seemed to find kind of a second life to where they're still super relevant, even with new fans, because of what they're doing on social media. But their product is kind of an everyday product. It's merchandise. It's, hey man, that's a cool hoodie design, that's a cool t-shirt design, and I think you're running a similar trajectory, but also at the same time different. Your product isn't merch. It's a part of the kit when you go out and ride. Have you learned anything from what Twitch is doing with his YouTube and his merch company, and vice versa? Do you guys kind of talk shop and go back and forth as far as growing your other thing beyond just being an athlete?
A little bit, but me and Twitch used to ride and hang out. Every day was Saturday. It was, we were riding, having fun, watching movies at night, prepping bikes, getting up early, riding, training. Now, we're both family men and stuff.
Yeah.
We might talk once a month, but it's one of those things where, you gotta stay in your lane. Like Twitch and Deegan have more of like a celebrity to them. They were on the reality TV shows. Twitch is just, his character is, people are drawn to him. He's wild. He was wild back in the day. He's
slightly less
outspoken.
wild.
He's funny. Things like that. People are drawn to Twitch. I've known Twitch for upwards of 20 years now, and people just want to be around him. He's a fun guy to be around, so you can't blame him. But I know what Twitch is. It's a lifestyle brand, and the thing he's doing with DBK, that's his thing. And we talk shop here and there about business, but I know with my deal with Deft Family, it's it's a functional glove. Like you said, it's part of the kit. So. And like I said, it's about staying in my lane. I can't really, get caught up in what anyone else is doing or how they're doing it. I can learn.
Sure.
I can take advice. I can absolutely learn. And one thing that I've learned is it's hard work, and you got to stay in your lane and work hard and do what works for you. So both Deegan and Twitch have a little bit different approach than me. But I think we both know who our fans are, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, and we know how to market our brand. So obviously Deegan, with his success in freestyle, in Supercross and Motocross, then in freestyle, then in truck racing, now his kids also becoming successful, Haley in NASCAR, and both his boys in motocross. Again, I think he's on a little bit different level than me, has a little bit more celebrity status, and I feel like I'm the rider's rider. Deft Family is the rider company. It's that brand that's made for riders. It's our slogan we started out with was, by riders for riders. And that's what I truly feel like Deft Family is. It's the glove that people who know what they want out of their glove and are sick of what's the industry standard are coming to Deft Family, and they know it's built by me. They know I ride in them. They know I approve of them. I test them all. And again, that's why I think that still carries through today. Even if, new fans or customers of Deft Family weren't watching me throughout the meat of my career and winning X Games, X Fighters, Do Tour, and all that. But that's what built this glove.
Right.
And luckily I still have, guys on board like, Michael Lieb and Bo Bamberg and all these great athletes, Ryan Nyquist, Brett Banasewicz on the BMX side. And I can still continue to, improve the glove, not just on my opinion, but what the guys that are out there at the top right now competing and what they want. So I think, Deegan, Twitch, they have their lanes and they have their brands, and I have my lane and I have my brand. And I think it's, we've all three been successful with our brands because we know our lane and we work hard, and this is the sport that we love.
Yeah. It's interesting to see athletes that find that niche, and the ones that are successful are the ones that are doing exactly what the three of you do, where you had said that you stay in your lane, you continue to make your own brand, and you did that when you were an athlete as well. I mean, it was, you had Deegan and his crew as the bad boys, and even though you were tight with them, you never saw that you never saw you trying to step into that. You were always that guy that the clean cut, everyday guy could relate to a little bit more than the crew that was going to destroy a hotel room or have that vibe and that aura about them. And their brands obviously have changed, but you stayed in your lane through and through, even when you were an athlete as well. Hey, when we come back, I want to finish talking to Nate about what is next for Deft Family. Obviously, he's gotten it to this point, and now has more time to be able to focus on it, even though he still does ride and still gets out on the bike and has his brand ambassadorship roles that he plays. But what does that next step look like for Deft Family? And we'll talk to him about it when we come back right after this. Hey, big shout out to our friends at FMF. Little D and the guys are always doing some pretty exciting things, not just with the performance products, but man, they've got the coolest apparel in the game, and I want to give you guys an opportunity to get that at a little bit of a discount. If you go to FMF and pick up any gear you'd like, hats, shirts, whatever it is, upon checkout, if you enter the code MMP30, MMP30, you can get 30% off. So MMP30 at checkout and get 30% off your order on FMF apparel. Hey, I want to tell you about our friends over at Evil Coffee. And when I say friends, I genuinely mean it. We use their product here. We enjoy their product here. We are coffee addicts here at the Moto Marketing Podcast Studio and the Impakt Results offices. We've got baristas that work for us. We've got espresso machines, multiple coffee machines. We dig our coffee, and we dig Evil Coffee. It's specialty coffee grown in Costa Rica and small batch roasted right in Columbus, Ohio, which is pretty much our backyard. So what is specialty coffee? It's coffee beans that have been scored 80 points or above on the 100-point coffee review scale, where aroma, acidity, body, and flavor are all taken into account. Evil exclusively roasts specialty Costa Rican coffee due to its lower acidity and robust flavor profiles. Not gonna lie, it's one of the only coffees that I've been able to drink black. I normally put some almond milk in it, but man, I can actually drink this stuff just straight out of the pot, right? Or even better, out of the espresso machine. So something else that they're doing, if you're tired of running out of coffee, or even worse, going to the store to get your coffee, Evil Coffee Club is the solution to ensure you always are stocked up on the freshest, best tasting coffee available. Here's how it works. Once you hit subscribe, you'll be prompted to pick your roast and then your preferred bean style. You can feel free to mix and match, and what they'll do is they'll take care of the rest and deliver it straight to your doorstep every single month. So check out evilcoffeecompany.com and set yourself up, man. I mean, it's really good. And here's the even cooler thing. They're Moto guys, right? These guys are into Moto, and I like to support people that are into Moto, even when they have a product that isn't necessarily Moto oriented. So go over to evilcoffeecompany.com, tell them that Luke from the Moto Marketing Podcast sent you, and enjoy yourself a fresh cup of the Evil Coffee Company Go Juice. All right, welcome back. Again, we've got Nate Adams on the show with us today, and we're talking about Deft Family and kind of where it came from and how the brand was created initially, and that story about Target manufacturing the gloves was interesting. I didn't realize that, and I think that's cool how that's where it all originated from, and then it's just grown. It's grown from there. So what role does your phone and social media and just all the media capabilities that we have today that wasn't there when you were, when this first started? Like, you didn't have Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and now you've got TikTok. You've got all these things that help you get that exposure. What role does that play into the day-to-day strategy for Deft Family?
It's huge. It's huge. In fact, I don't think without just the uprising of social media and it being so prevalent in our society, I could still be a brand ambassador for companies like Monster and Alpine Star and CBDMD, all my sponsors. But to run a business, I work from home. I'm kind of a stay-at-home / working riding dad. I have twin 4-year-old boys, and it works great. I mean, sometimes I work from 6 a.m. to 6:45, and then 8:30 a.m. to 10, and then 11:30 a.m. to 12:15 p.m.
Yeah.
And you have to work when you can work when you work at home. And I couldn't do that. I couldn't have the time with my boys through this, their early years of their life and molding them and and doing everything I'm doing without social media and the internet. So I only wish it was around in '08
Yeah.
and in '09 when I dropped the first gloves. I think it just would have made our arrival into the industry that much bigger. But it's paramount for how I'm living my life right now, and keeping my riding career going, staying in touch with fans. It's huge. Again, just another blessing,
So do you, little off topic, but what you kind of said with just your ambassadorships, it made me think of this. Do you do all of your own agent negotiating work, or do you have an agent that you work with?
I have an agent, actually. I've had one agent my whole career, Jimmy Button. I signed on with Jimmy when I was 17. I think just prior to my first X Games in 2001.
Still the
So that was a
same.
long time
That's
ago. I was
awesome.
17. So yeah, Jimmy Button at Washburn Media, he handles all sponsorship dealings as far as money and all that. So it saves me a lot of time, and again, another blessing, so I can focus on Deft and my riding and just being with my boys,
What does that look like now? I think that's even better that it's been the same guy this entire time. What has the difference been from early moto days when you were the guy but social media wasn't around to now? Is that being brought up as something that brands want out of athletes like you? Specific things with your online brand and things like that. What does that look like? Is that just an obvious thing that you have to make part of your week to week thing to keep sponsors like Monster and all the others supporting you?
Absolutely. I mean, I take it very seriously. I need to constantly be producing content, fresh content for my fans to see, also to let my sponsors know, I'm not just hanging out. I'm riding. I'm not just being a stay-at-home dad and working. I'm riding and interacting with my fans, and that's a really cool thing. When you were a kid, and especially when I was a kid, you couldn't do that. You couldn't send Jeremy McGrath or Jimmy Button a message, and depending on how much they're on social media or how many messages they get, you might get a reply in an hour or a week or a month. But still, how cool to be able, for kids nowadays, to be able to reach out and at least know, hey, I sent my favorite rider a message or this or that. I think it's great. I mean, I get to interact with fans. I'm also on this app called Cameo, where you can request a shout out. So I get usually a couple of those a week, and I don't charge a lot of money. It's literally just a few dollars. It's fun for me to be able to interact with fans. And like this morning, I just wished a guy named Richard from the UK happy birthday from his whole family. So all the internet, the online stuff, the digital stuff, it's huge. I mean, I don't think I'd be without it. I don't think I'd be 36, not competing anymore, riding for fun, going to events for, Monster and being a brand ambassador. I don't think I could do it without social media.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just no value there if I don't have followers and people viewing my content. So it's something I take very seriously and something I put time into every day. When we're done with this, I'm going to download some GoPro footage of my riding from yesterday. So it's just, it's constant. And it's a great thing for me, because I really don't think I'd be on my bike as far for concerning a part of my living anymore without it.
So taking off the athlete hat and now putting on the entrepreneur business owner hat, what are the expectations for you and those that you support athlete wise as far as social media? Do you have that conversation with them as far as, hey, this is what I'd like to see, or is it just kind of the unspoken rule with professionals that they know what they need to do, right? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, it is a bit unspoken, I guess. I think it's just gotten to the point now where everyone knows it's part of the deal. It's part of the deal. You post daily, you create cool content, you interact with fans, you don't do anything stupid on social media, shooting yourself in your own foot, doing something stupid and then posting it. I think that's gotten to a few people. So I think it's just unwritten, and everyone just kind of knows it's, the better your social media, it can only help you. The more followers you have, the more interactive you are on it, the more positivity you bring, and not just doing your own thing, but also helping others. It creates a positive light around you and your sponsors. Yeah. So I think it's kind of an unwritten, unmentioned thing, but everyone knows they got to do it. And as far as Deft Family athletes, I know who the athlete is before I sponsor them. So I kind of know does this guy post once a week? He posts every day. He's, kind of posting lewd and crude stuff. So that will affect whether the sponsorship's going to happen or not from the drop. But one thing I'll just make sure is that guys are okay to tag us, especially if it's, the product's in the photo, and be willing to, if we have a sale or something, be willing to let their followers know that, hey, Deft Family's having a sale, and, here's why I love the gloves, all that. Just basically be able to support the company. So before I even go into a sponsorship with a rider, those things are already kind of, expected.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, to be honest, man, you're doing a better job with that, and you understand it more than I think a lot of brands do. And I think the reason is because you're not just an entrepreneur. You have that expectation put on you from brands, so therefore you know what you're expected or what's expected of you. And I think that just transitions into what you expect from your athletes. But man, there are so many brands, clients that we work with, that we run their digital marketing campaigns, and when you look at their what they're doing with their ambassadors and their athletes, there isn't any expectation. There isn't any model for them to abide by and follow, and there's a lot of missed opportunity there. And I think you're with as small as your brand is, you're capitalizing on it, and I think it's because you're that athlete as well, and that's a unique aspect of your business.
Got to see the other side of it for sure, and still do. I still have those posting obligations for certain sponsors, and can't just tag them in a list of 20 sponsors and call it good. You gotta work for them. And when I own a brand, you get it. Like when I was just a rider, maybe when I was in my early 20s, it'd kind of be annoying to go, I just want to ride and train and get better, but I got to go up to Monster and do this, or I got to fly out somewhere and spend a few days there. That's
absolutely.
3 days of not doing any 360 to dirt, and I'm getting nervous just thinking about not riding for 3 days. And now, 36, I own a brand, and I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
I'll even say on the phone call, I'm sorry. I used to get annoyed by this stuff too.
Yeah, I hear
but
you.
When you're my age, you'll get it, you know. And I have a great relationship with all of our riders. So it's nothing. I'm not being overbearing or a mean boss or anything, but I think it resonates with my athletes that I do it. I'm still doing it. I've been doing it since I was in my teens. So it's just something that's part of the deal, man. It can't just ride. You got to do some obligations too. It's a job as well,
What do you think about the state of the sport, moto in general? You've got Supercross,
Pre-COVID
Motocross.
or currently?
What's that?
Pre-COVID or?
Let's I think that's a hard one, because who knows what post-COVID is going to look like. I think whatever you feel comfortable talking on. So, obviously, I think freestyle and then Supercross, Motocross, while they're both moto, they're in different places. Like, what's your take on just the sport in general right now? Sales of motocross bikes and parts are strangely up, because that's the only thing we've had to do. So it's hard to say is that going to positively have a positive impact after COVID. But going into COVID, I guess we can just go that route. What's your take on the state of the sport right now?
Well, now we know, Supercross is going to be coming back in Salt Lake City and having all the final rounds there. I think X Games, last I heard, is canceled. That's crazy. But yeah, pre-COVID, I would like for freestyle. You're always going to kind of see your day in it as the best, right? But man, we had big courses. When you first put eyes on some of those X Fighters courses and some of the X Games Dew Tour courses, like literally your heart rate went up. It wasn't just a landing in the center of a stadium or arena with 4 or 5 ramps going to it, which is cool. I think it's great that freestyle is still competing on a top level, televised in X Games, all that stuff. But I would really like, I'm hoping that maybe if X Games is absolutely canceled this year, maybe a year off would be able to just allow the sports to come back with more of a bang, and I would really like to see X Games extend the course a little bit, bring back, double lines, dirt takeoffs, all that stuff. But I think the sport's healthy. Nitro Circus Tour, X Games, Night of the Jumps in Europe, the sport's still, Freestyle Kings in China, and there's all these events and shows and competitions still healthy, still televised, still, filling the stands. So, and as far as Supercross, it's still just, I think the sport will never go away. I think it's in a great spot. I haven't seen any numbers or anything. Again, I'm just a fan of Supercross, but I think it's the talent coming through from the amateurs into the 250s and 250s into 450. It's like there's great guys not making the main every weekend, and that just blows my mind. So I think that the talent's there, and you know, without seeing, you know, my manager Jimmy Button might have some more numbers on things, you know, bike sales, ticket sales, these things like that. But from where I'm looking at, everything looks great, you know, and that was pre-COVID, so we don't really know what. I'm sick of hearing new normal, but we don't really know what that's going to look like, but we're inching closer to that every day. So I hope that it'll go back to the old normal, and that people will just be filling the stands and enjoying watching dirt bikes and freestyle and all motorsports, all that stuff. So, man, we're just going to, I guess, have to see how these, you know, last few rounds in Salt Lake City go. There's no fans in the stands. Am I right on that?
Yeah, that's right. It's going to be, I think as a fan at home, I don't think obviously we're going to care. It's just going to be good to be back, but it is obviously, it's weird that for sure there are no fans. I think where it gets interesting is when you start talking outdoors. They have to have fans at some capacity, because I was explaining this to somebody the other day, and we do a lot of work with those folks. You know, for example, the Ritchie family, Tim and Amy, that's their job. That's their livelihood. If they have a big race and no fans, you're talking that really puts a hurt on them and flirts with, you know, the term bankruptcy could be thrown around. That's like me doing my job but there's no clients. So I'm paying my staff, but there's no clients. I mean, that's these folks' livelihood, very different than Supercross. So, you know, it's interesting what the Coombs family and MX Sports has done with this Safe to Race toolkit, and Tim Cotter and his team have put together. If anybody can get it done to where there's going to be fans at a pro motocross race this year, I have no doubt it's Carrie and Davey and Rita and Tim Cotter, because I saw it with GNCC and went back racing a couple weeks ago, and we you know, I run an e-bike team, and that's part of that series. So I got to go down and see it. There were 600 racers for ATVs on Saturday, and I think there was about 1,200 on Sunday. Nice. Just coming out of COVID-19. So there's good news there, and I think it's a positive thing. So all we can do is keep our fingers crossed that it does come back.
Well, if GNCC can do it, I would hope Motocross can do it. I mean, Walmarts are open, and
exactly.
You know, these, you know, Lowe's, Home Depot. So again, I think we're just inching back to normal, and I hope it'll go back to the old normal. It's crazy all that's going on. So
for those that aren't super familiar with Deft, or maybe haven't paid attention to the brand as much as they should, did you bring, before we jumped on, did you go in the garage and grab some product?
I did. I grabbed my box of photo shoot gloves here.
For those listening, go to YouTube as well. This is a video show now as well, so Nate's going to show us some products. So if you're listening on iTunes, I appreciate it, but make sure you hop over to YouTube at some point to check these out. So what do we got, Nate?
So these are our 2020 gloves. Actually, we do offer, this is called our solid gloves. Even though it's a solid black, it's called an equivalent solid, and we offer these in black, royal blue, baby blue, yellow, red, and aqua, actually. But still, form, fit, function, durability, all that stuff. That's kind of a more bland design. Just the solid black there. Here is like it's called our Vibe. This is actually a different model, different cut, so it fits your hand a little different. The all black is called the equivalent model. This model here, the design is called the Vibe, kind of like a tie-dye color. It comes in two different colors. This is definitely the lighter one. The other one has more black and dark purple in it. This is a different cut. I don't really prefer one over the other for Deft Family, the Catalyst glove or the equivalent, but some of our athletes and customers prefer one over the other. But show you the aqua set. This is another one of our equivalent solids in aqua. Again, just a simple aqua color with Deft on the top hand. Very cool. Then you hold up both hands. It says Deft Family on the palm, just like the
Did that originate with you? I meant to ask you that earlier. The whole putting the hands together and a message is.
Yeah.
Does it drive you nuts that every brand does this now?
Everyone does it now. It did at first, but what can you do? Like I said earlier in the podcast, it's business. I mean, I just wanted to show you guys, a couple of the gloves that we make, and we have over 30 different designs on our website at deftfamily.com, and we're on Instagram at Deft Family, But the palm thing, I mean, that was another thing. It was just like, when riders are done with a race, they're throwing their hand up in the air or whatever, and we just saw that as another marketing opportunity and a little bit of rubber or silicone on the palm doesn't hurt, a little bit of added grip. Some riders prefer it. Some riders don't. So we vary that on the palm as well with different models of gloves. But again, we just saw that as a huge marketing opportunity and we took advantage of it. But it's not something, again, that we could, stop anyone else from doing. So other companies started coming on and doing that as well. But like I said, business is a fight, man. You just got to keep thinking of new stuff and moving forward, try to stay ahead of the game,
as we kind of close things out, this is something that I've been excited to ask you. What is the biggest thing you learned as an athlete that you feel has been the biggest advantage, has given you the biggest advantage as an entrepreneur?
Man, I guess that's a great question. I've never really thought of that, I guess, in the front of my mind, but in the back of my mind, I've always known that, if I can go through the physical beating daily of the riding, the training, the foam pits are not fun. They're not soft, contrary to what they look like. The traveling, the injuries, I just kind of have that as a foundation for me. Just in my mind, I feel like if I can go through that pain of the broken legs and the arms and all the the dislocated joints, I can figure this out. Like whatever it is concerning Deft Family, if it's a website issue or it's how to reach new customers, how to market to a younger people now that I'm older. It wasn't hard when I was young to market to young people, but you kind of, as you get older, you want to be able to, I want to be able to market to enduro guys, Supercross guys, young kids. So anything I guess I face within the realm of Deft Family, I just, it's not cocky or arrogant, but I just know it, man, if I was able to become the best at something through dedication and mental focus and physical dedication, then I can do this too. So I kind of I use my career as a foundation for motivation for myself in business.
That's awesome. Well, man, this has been a pleasure. I could geek out and ask you all kinds of questions from X Games of years past, but obviously with this being a business show, I really wanted to stay focused on kind of your role as an ambassador and entrepreneur. And man, it's been awesome. So I appreciate you being on the show with us today, and look forward to one day having you back on here soon.
Thanks. Look, I was just gonna say, man, have me back on.
Yeah, we will.
I enjoyed this, and I'm happy to do it anytime. So
awesome. I appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Moto Marketing Podcast. If your goal is to get real, measurable results from your marketing that will grow your company revenue, then check out how Impakt Media can get the same results that they have for Moto's most iconic brands by visiting thinkimpakt.com. That's THINKIMPAKT.com. Have a marketing question that you want answered on the show? Send your questions to questions@motomarketingpodcast.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Moto Marketing Podcast.